All right, I think we are live here. Good afternoon, Facebook. I'm excited to have you all join me on today's Midday Money Chat. My name is Angela, and I do hope that you are all doing very well, especially as we continue during these stressful times of social distancing. And I think today is actually day 75 for my family and I. So how about you guys? Drop us a comment and let us know how you're doing below. Again, we're wishing you all well. So let's have a little chat about something that's really important in not only our military community, but I think anyone in general can relate to financial stress and anxiety and how that impacts us as military families. So perhaps you're in a situation where you don't have an emergency savings, or maybe you had one and had to use it and are now working to replenish it. And that is completely fine. And we've always talked a little bit about what you're really saving for. And if you want to take a sneak peek back to our week 1 money chat that we filmed back in April, you can go ahead and look that up on our YouTube channel, and we'll also post a link to that below. And that again talks a little bit more about your emergency savings. However, something that we haven't discussed much and something that we're going to be doing today is how are we doing with managing our financial stress and our anxiety during these very uncertain times. So this discussion, of course, is for all military spouses, service members, active duty, National Guard, Reserve, and our veterans. Financial stress and anxiety plagues us all. And I'm thrilled to have an expert with us today to talk a little bit more about the overall impact our finances can have on our mental well-being. So before I introduce our special guest today, I do want to mention that this type of silence is not golden. So if you or someone you know is struggling with any kind of stress, anxiety, or depression, please seek the advice of a medical professional. We will have some resources posted here in the comments below. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24 hours a day. The number and the link is below, and that is 1-800-273-8255. And with that being said, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Ingrid Herrera-Yee. She is a clinical and research psychologist with over 15 years of experience working in the military mental health field, and she has a decade focused on military and military family suicide, which includes her work in support of the Defense Suicide Prevention Office's first ever report on military family suicides. She's a military spouse and a mom of 3. Her work has been cited in academic journals, the Military Times, CNN, and NBC News. She runs a nonprofit, MSPCA, and she's going to have to explain that acronym in a moment. And that provides employment and networking support to military spouses in the mental health fields, and continues to work daily to bring down the suicide rate among military service members and their families. And I feel like I should also include that Ingrid is a very great friend of mine. I've known her for quite some time now. Welcome, Ingrid. Thank you so much. We're so honored to have you here today to discuss such an important topic, that's really affecting so many lives today.
Thank you so much for having me. The topic of finances it's funny, just like mental health, it's kind of hush hush. People don't talk about, their struggles. People don't talk about the fact that, they're using credit cards to survive, to pay bills, to just get their day-to-day expenses taken care of, that they don't have enough at the end of the month to provide enough food on the table for their family. People don't talk about this, and there's this sense of in our community that we got this, we're strong, and that's true, but you have to be, you have to know that that you're not alone. I can tell you that from some of our most recent surveys with the Department of Defense, up to 30% of families are struggling, just like you, with their finances. And when I say struggling, I mean not being able to pay all their bills every month, not having an emergency fund, not being able to, provide for their family, in any significant way for the entirety of the month. So this is, self-report survey, anonymous information. So obviously it's probably underreported. So, that's huge.
Yeah.
To know that you're not alone, that there's nothing to be ashamed of, that we've all been there, myself included. There was a time when my husband was unemployed as a National Guardsman, and we only had my income, and having just moved somewhere new, I basically was doing adjunct professorship, which pays nothing,
Yeah.
and we could go on on SNAP benefits temporarily while we both kind of got on our feet. So this is not anything that most of us have not in some way touched, right? These
Yeah.
financial worries and concerns. When it becomes an issue is when the anxieties, they're there for you on a more consistent basis. It's starting to affect your day-to-day life. You worry a lot daily about it, and it's starting to really impact your relationships. It's starting to impact your marriage. It's starting to impact the way you are at home, or just provoking a lot of those really hard feelings of oh my God, how are we going to make it, and it's very, very real. These anxieties are very, very real, and in this current COVID-19 environment, it becomes even more real for our military community, our veteran community, our spouses. Even though a good portion of our active duty, obviously they have a job, but their spouses may not. Their kids are home. And there's a lot of expenses that come with our kids being home more. Those lunches that were paid for at school are no longer there. So all that assistance from the day-to-day breakfast and lunch at school is not there anymore. So there's a lot of stressors. There's a lot of difficulties, and it's an important issue to be open and honest about. That's why I shared about our experiences with it, because here I am, but I was like with my doctorate, and we were on SNAP benefits, and we were in the military and we're on SNAP benefits. My husband was with the Guard and couldn't find employment right away, and we had just moved and I could not. So this is very real for our families, and our veterans too, and our spouses. So keeping all of that in mind in this current environment, just it's important to know that if you start really feeling like it's difficult to get going, reach out, talk to a professional if needed, reach out to your community, to your network, find resources. Angela and the Military Saves team have amazing resources to share on how to help you through these financial difficulties. But I'm mostly here to tell you that, those anxieties are normal until they're not, okay? So they overwhelm you, please talk to somebody. And arm yourself with those resources that are going to help you, move forward and solve those issues. So you feel like you have peace of mind, to move forward and hopefully, not, really diminish the struggle that you may be experiencing as a result of this.
Yeah, no, and I think, you really hit the nail on the head when you're talking about anything related to finances, and when you're struggling, that's taboo. I know it's taboo in every community, but in that military community especially, it's almost a sign of, what am I doing wrong? Am I making the right choices? My husband's employed, or the spouse might be employed, but you're still struggling. And it's so important, finances is personal. Mental health is personal. And I think it's something that everyone is a little afraid to share that they struggle with it. And you had mentioned a little bit about, as a professional in this field, like, do you see a specific reason in our military community, other than it's just kind of hush hush? Why is it difficult to talk about, these issues, and what's something that they, can do in order to talk about it and to feel like they're not alone?
Well, I think that part of it too is that they may not know where to go and who to talk to, and even if they do know, there are concerns, just like with mental health, that it's going to get to command, or that there might be consequences, because when you go to some of these service-related relief organizations, They ask you to do a budget. They ask you to go through all those paces, and your command knows, so I think there's some fear about that, but I'd like to say you should not fear that. Command involvement or knowledge, they're there to support you. And if that is a deterrent, do not let it be. There are other resources and other sources of information to assist. So another piece of this for our community too is that we always have this whole mentality of we can get through anything. We're resilient, right? But really, it's okay to ask for help. And there's so many parallels again with mental health and with finances. That people are afraid to ask for help. They don't know, or they're afraid of the consequences, or they don't want to appear like they can't handle things on their own. Those are the types of issues that come up for people who are struggling financially. And those are all myths, okay? Every single one of them. You can get help. It's okay to get help. It's good to talk about these things. And I feel like I'm talking about mental health. It's true. It's true. You have to know that it's okay to reach out and seek help. We all struggle at one point or another, unless you were like, I don't know, born with some sort of trust fund from birth. All of us struggle.
And it's stress whether you have it or not too. That's such a huge impact. So when you're talking about, you're going to be open with it, you're going to seek the right resources, physically, mentally, what does that do to a family? I guess we should put physical on the side, but what does that do to your family unit if you've got this stress, even if you're not talking to your spouse about it? Because I know a lot of scenarios where you've got that financial stress, paying bills, putting food on the table. Maybe there's some kind of like repair, what happens, deployments, it's always breaking.
Murphy.
Right? Exactly. And if you don't have the ability to talk to your spouse about that, what impact does that do to that family unit?
Exactly. It causes anxiety, it causes stress, it causes depression. It could significantly affect the marital relationship, in the family unit, because there's this constant stress about being able to afford something, or not having enough to eat, or and that constant everyday stress starts wearing on the entire family's mental health. Even if you think you're doing a good job of keeping it away from the kids hear more than you think.
They do.
So they get stressed, about the financial situation in the family, about not having enough to eat, about, not being able to go out and do things that maybe they used to do as a family. And so the stress involved, the anxiety, the depression, it could even lead ultimately to suicidal ideation for some.
Wow. Yeah. And I think when we're thinking about stress, people think the common, I'm just stressed. It's a word that's used a lot, right? But that can negatively affect our health. And I guess, what are some like side effects of stress that maybe people are not aware of, or they don't expect when they're dealing with that kind of, that stress, that anxiety?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's almost circular. I mean, there's weight gain, there's hair loss, there's all kinds of physical, issues that come into play on top of the anxiety, the depression, everything else. And then that makes you feel worse. And when you feel worse, then you have less coping strategies, or less positive coping strategies to help you get through it. And then, there's more stress, and then you just spiral from there. That's why it's important to keep talking to people, to have a social network, to have resources in mind, to reach out when you need it, and to know that you are not alone, not at all. So many people have gone through this, and it's important to talk to somebody, anybody. Talk to me. It's all good. I'm there.
Right. Yeah. Surprised the more you talk about these issues that you're having, and you think, well, it's almost like that social media. You see the beautiful pictures of everybody having a fun time, but I always say, don't read into that. A lot of that, people are struggling, and you don't know what's going on in their personal lives, because they're not going to share the negative online. They're going to share the positive, which something, and as a military spouse, check in with your tribe. I think it's so very important, especially now when we don't have that ability to really go meet in person, have a cup of coffee. Checking in with them is so important, and it's something that I've caught myself doing more of, even if it's just a really quick note, hey, been thinking about you, or hey, I miss you, can't wait, to get together for dinner. So I think, for us and our situation and military spouses, we have a unique situation. For instance, Ingrid and myself, we met online, which sounds weird, but I think a lot of us, because of how, we're all in different parts of the country, that's kind of how military spouses roll. We have our little online community. So I think if anything, we were equipped very well for COVID-19 to really have the ability to use that network that we have kind of armed ourselves with for these years that we've, known each other and things like that. So, our groups and like you said, just reach out to someone. It's so important to have that conversation going. Something that I recently read, actually, it was the very last event I attended, was the Blue Star Families survey release. And I was surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I was surprised, but this was pre-COVID. They're saying that 63% of military families are experiencing stress due to their current financial situation. And so when I think about that, it's like, okay, it's human nature to stress about money, whether you have it or you don't. You're always going to find something to stress about when it comes to your finances, whether you don't have enough, or you don't know if you should be investing, or what's the right place to put your money. Are you seeing a difference in the types of stress? Because I know there's the good kinds of stress and the bad types, kinds of stress. And how do you tell the difference between those two? Like, what is that signal that's saying, oh, this is not a good kind of stress? Like, it's not the everyday normal stress. How does someone know what to do with that?
Well, two things. One is how long it lasts. If it's been over, like, say 30 days, that's usually the threshold for diagnoses of depression, anxiety, and other things, is that this has been going on pretty relentlessly for 30 days and you're unable to cope, and it is interfering. This is another key point. Yeah. Interfering with changing, your day-to-day life. So you're not enjoying things the way you used to enjoy them. So you may still be going through the motions of doing things, but you're not enjoying it. You're not really there, you're not in the moment enjoying it. And it's not easy for you to find things that bring you enjoyment anymore. And you're more tired, or you're sleeping more or less. That's funny. It could be one extreme or the other, but change from your normative is, really the key. Is, have you seen a big change in that, and has it lasted, a long time? If so, that's when that it's moved from, say, stress or some sadness, or dealing with a little bit of, I'm a little stressed or worried, to this might be diagnosable and I need to talk to somebody. That's really that threshold to know that, hey, maybe I need to talk to someone about this, because it's starting to interfere with my day-to-day and with my relationships and with getting stuff done. It's harder to do things for you. That's right. That's a really big key moment for you to look at and say, wow, I'm really struggling just to do the everyday stuff that I'm supposed to do.
That's such a wonderful way to really look at it. And I personally have never thought about it that way, because I remember, like, there's that old saying where you don't have to be happy all the time. And, it's true, you're going to have your good days and your bad days. However, knowing what the difference between that good stress and that bad stress, that's really important. And, especially during these times where we don't have the ability to do the things that once, like you said, were made us happy, or maybe when we're out of this, situation, we look at it and think, oh, well, things are kind of back to the new normal, but how am I going to, to deal with this now moving forward? And I know we talked a lot about reaching out to our community and having, that social support when it comes to managing stress, but how is it, what are some other coping mechanisms, in regards to dealing with that stress? And if you do determine this is a problem now, this is not just a good kind of stress, I might be depressed, I might, need to talk to someone.
Mm-hmm. So other than, seeking help from your network, really trying to think about things that can bring you some relief. Like, I often tell people about Headspace because it's a great resource. It gives you like time to meditate. It has relaxing music. It takes you through breathing exercises. So ways to kind of, bring your heart rate down. And if you start feeling physically better, it starts to ease your mind. It's also connected the body and mind, right? So using those kinds of techniques, figuring out things that you do enjoy doing. Like during this pandemic and, being here, I've gone back to think about things that I enjoyed when I was a college student, and I used to love the theater. So I've been watching a lot of YouTube, like live theater shows, things that I haven't been to the theater since I was in undergrad. But I rediscovered something that I loved, so trying to rediscover things or even discover new things that may bring you some joy and take your mind off of, the everyday grind and, the stress of living, and the stress of life and the stress of finances and relationships and everything else that comes, just finding moments. And people say, well, I don't have time. I work a lot. I homeschool now like everybody else. And so, what I do is I get up half an hour before everybody else in the house. So the house is really still and really quiet. And sometimes I read, sometimes I watch some of those videos that I discussed. Sometimes during the workday, if I'm not in a meeting, I blast 80s music. I mean, I try to do things that, relax my mind, that take me out of my head, so to speak, out of that space where I'm stuck in all this negative, information is feeding through my head, which happens to all of us, and try to just breathe and enjoy something for what it is. And, just finding what works for you. That's important. Sometimes I just go outside, just go for a walk outside in nature, whatever it is that might kind of bring you back, bring you some peace, even if it's momentarily, enough of those, moments, and you start to feel better over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important too. It'll look different for everyone. I know watching, just even looking, like scrolling through Facebook and seeing friends get back into certain things that, like you said, they haven't done it in years. So it's nice to see you kind of make that time for yourself. I always say, if you want to be a better mom, a better wife, a better worker, and now we're teachers, you need to make that time for yourself, even if it's just the 30 minutes. In the day, it's important to definitely, assess yourself and see, how you're doing and checking in with yourself. So important. And so you had mentioned Headspace as a valuable resource. Is there any other resource that you would recommend, when trying to like get out of your head, deal with this stress that so many of us are currently, facing?
Well, there's a lot of free resources for meditation that you can just find online for meditation, for yoga. A lot of places are offering free classes. Exercise and getting out there and getting physically, active is helpful. And there's a lot of great, programs out there to assist with that too. And, just Military One Source. I know everyone says that, but it's free counseling. Use it.
Yeah.
and you can do it on the phone. You can do it like we're doing right now via video. You could text, which I don't find as useful, but whatever is the most helpful. Some people are great at texting. I have fat fingers, so it's like it would take me an hour to get a couple of sentences out. But if that's what you prefer, that's available too. So it's great to know that there is a resource, all that. And they have, great links to more information there as well if you need any help with anything, deployment or, anything for your children. So it's a great overall resource, and it's gotten better and better over time.
Yeah, we've used them. So I can't even tell you how many times, both for personal counseling, marriage counseling is another really great thing, to be able to work some of these stressors out with your partner if you have the ability to do so. I think it's wonderful, wonderful resource. So Ingrid, thank you so much for, for talking about this very important topic. I know it makes many a little uncomfortable to talk about money, and then, how the financial stress kind of affects us all. However, could you tell us a little bit about MSBHC and where can people find you if they wanted to reach out?
So I founded MSPHC in 2012. So we've been around for about 8 years. And basically, it started like any other, most military spouse owned businesses and nonprofits. It's basically, I looked around as a military spouse in behavioral health fields. I couldn't find a job. I felt alone. I had colleagues in the field that understood me, but didn't really understand the military life. And then I had military spouses in my life that understood me as a military spouse, but not as a professional in the mental health field. And so I just started this grassroots Facebook group just to say, hey, I'm sure I'm not alone here. And it's grown, to a few thousand, 3,000, I think, members now worldwide. A lot of our spouses are CONUS because they need so much support too, and information around networking and finding a job in mental health and just dealing with, the licensure issues, everything else. So that's what MSBHC is about. And it stands for Military Spouse Behavioral Health Clinicians. So it's like an association, it's like a network of support. And you can find us at msbhc.org. And on Facebook, we have a very active private group where it's all military spouses, girlfriends, fiancés, veteran spouses. So it's not just military spouses, but we didn't know how to encompass everybody in the name. So really anyone who loves a military service member, because we even have like moms and sisters and everything in there. So and who is interested in the behavioral health field and how to manage it as you navigate the military lifestyle. We're there for you. So that's
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be sure. We'll add that link in the bottom there if anybody wants to check it out, and come find you for some resources. So again, thank you for joining us today. If there are any questions that we have not answered or something that perhaps we haven't discussed today, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, or you can shoot us an email over to info@militarysaves.org and we'll get those answered for you. So in regards to some resources, I know we talked a lot about stress and anxiety, and yes, this had a financial spin to it. We have resources and information on all of this over at militarysaves.org. And we also have a special COVID-19 landing page with a ton of resources for military families and service members to help guide you. And, Military One Source, I know Ingrid said we say that a lot, but it is a wonderful place to go and look for some more information. So to keep this conversation going, we have a Facebook group, and it's called Military Savers. We will get that link posted in the comments section below as well. And you can also find this group under our Facebook page, and it's in the tab that says groups. We look forward to the next Midday Money Chat, and that's going to happen here at Military Saves Monthly. And as always, have a safe and healthy, stay safe and healthy. And I appreciate everyone tuning in. Have a great week.